Well, so here's the punchline. And this is the part that set my brain on fire and made me realize that I never really understood 80/20 in the first place, even though I had thought that I did.
Okay.
The punchline is there's a top 20% of the top 20%, and they still produce 80% of the 80%. So if you hire 100 salespeople, 20 of them will sell 4 times more than the other 80 put together. So person for person, they're 16 times more. But if I just take the top 20% of the top 20% will sell 80% of the 80%. So that means sales is driven by a handful of, yeah, four.
I was like trying to do my math in my head. Four, right?
If you have 100 salespeople, four of them will produce 2/3 of the sales.
Wow.
And this is true of customers too. 4% of your customers produce 2/3 of your sales. 1% of your customers produce half of your sales. And this should be true. And if it's not true, you're doing something wrong. And so this caused me to create a notion called the principle of the $2,700 espresso machine. It says that if you have 1,000 people a week buying lattes at Starbucks for $5, that's $5,000, right?
Hmm.
One of those 1,000 people will spend $2,700 on an espresso machine, or they'll spend $2,700 on something that has to do with coffee. They might go on a $6,000 Mediterranean barista cruise.
I'm in for that.
And And if you're just selling lattes, you probably don't even understand that you shouldn't be in the business you think you're in, and that Starbucks understands they're in a different business than what you think that you're in, because money is burning a hole in those people's pockets and they want to spend the money. So when I do live seminars, I do this funny exercise and it cracks everybody up. I'll say, everybody in the room, stand up if you own shoes. So, okay, everybody stands up. And then I, I say, sit down if you have less than 4. Sit down if you have less than 8. And then I'll just keep doubling the number. And I'll go 16, 32, 64, 128. Well, most people have never seen this happen. They're like, 128 shoes? Yes. And there's always like, I get to 128, and there's always like 5 or 6 people standing up. And the most shoes I ever had in a room, there was about 300 people in the room. One lady had 800 pairs of shoes.
Good golly.
And this is not weird. This is normal
For her.
for any crowd. If you have 300 people in a room, I guarantee you one of them has at least 3 or 400 pairs of shoes.
That's insane.
If I'm in a conference with entrepreneurs, domain names, there will always be somebody in the room who owns more than 1,000 domain names. The first time I ever did this exercise, one guy owned 10,000 domain names just sitting right there in the room.
Holy cow.
Everything is like this.
Okay.
Books, 20% of the readers own 80% of the books. 1% of the readers own 50% of the books. This is so true everywhere. When you see it, you will never unsee it again.
That's insane.